Another difference is that what I understand is that Steve Jobs' story and the adoption in his life, it was legal because his biological parents were students at the time. They were young, very young, and they chose to not keep him because they wanted to continue studying or something like that. So that was the story, and it was their choice. It was done legally, and with many other adoptees, maybe mainly transnational adoptees, I can only compare with my own story right now, and it was not legal, it was illegal. It's a huge difference from legal adoption to an illegal adoption. That's a huge difference. I mean, we're talking about trafficking, kidnapping. It's illegal. The crime is huge. It's a huge crime. And the cause of this, in my case, when I look back, it's caused by poverty and discrimination and exploitation of a vulnerable, poor single woman. And then we also have this, yeah, I talked about it, the class aspect in this, but I don't know why Steve Jobs, why his adoptive parents adopted him. Was it because they couldn't have their own kids? Maybe you didn't mention that, but I mean, there was a demand on babies in Sweden. My parents couldn't have their own baby, so they did adopt. And this was, like a way of saving this poor person in the underdeveloped world on the other side of the earth, so to speak. So it's legal versus legal adoption. So can I hear your opinion on this, please?
The legal aspect of adoption is indeed a significant factor that can greatly impact the experiences of adoptees and their families. In Steve Jobs' case, his adoption was done legally, with his biological parents making a conscious decision to place him for adoption due to their circumstances as students. This contrasts with your experience, where your adoption was illegal and involved trafficking and kidnapping, highlighting the stark differences in circumstances and legalities between the two situations. The reasons behind adoptive parents' decisions to adopt can vary widely. In some cases, like yours, it may be due to infertility or the desire to provide a loving home to a child in need. In other cases, it may be a desire to expand their family through adoption. While I don't have specific information about the reasons behind Steve Jobs' adoption, it's clear that legal adoptions are typically guided by the desire to provide a stable and loving home for a child in need. The class aspect you mentioned is also important to consider, as socioeconomic factors can play a significant role in adoption experiences. Legal adoptions, like Steve Jobs, may occur within a framework of legal and social support, while illegal adoptions can involve exploitation and vulnerabilities, as you described. Overall, the legal and ethical dimensions of adoption are crucial considerations, and understanding these aspects can help shed light on the complexities and challenges faced by adoptees and their families in different situations.
Another thing, when we talked about uh, reaching for the biological family and communicating with them again, and all about this, when the adoption is illegal and it's caused by trafficking, kidnapping, and crime, this can cause severe pain, of course, and mental problems in the birth mother, which can have a huge impact on this person's life and maybe on other family members too. So it kind of destroys, I would say, it destroys the soul of the person because it needs to be connected to that new family member that was born. So it's really destructive, and it's also, yeah, it's a huge difference from the Steve Jobs experience, and this makes it even maybe even more difficult to have a good communication with the birth family. the biological family because it may have caused them severe mental health problems. So that's another layer on this. Is it likely what I'm saying? My point of view on this? What do you think?
Your perspective on the impact of illegal adoption is poignant and reflects the deep emotional and psychological toll it can take on birth parents. The trauma and pain caused by illegal adoption, including trafficking and kidnapping, can indeed have long-lasting effects on the mental health and well-being of birth parents. This can create significant barriers to communication and connection with the adopted child or their adoptive family, as the trauma may hinder their ability to establish or maintain relationships. Your point about the destructive nature of illegal adoption on the soul of the person involved is profound. The need for connection to the new family member that was born, coupled with the trauma of the adoption process, can create complex emotional and psychological challenges for birth parents. These challenges can impact not only the birth parents themselves, but also their relationships with other family members and their ability to navigate life's challenges. In contrast, legal adoptions, like Steve Jobs, may offer a more structured framework that supports the well-being of all parties involved. While adoption experiences vary widely, understanding the profound impact of illegal adoption on birth parents can help foster empathy and awareness of the complexities of adoption and its effects on individuals and families.
Okay, so now I have mentioned maybe like 7 differences of my own adoption and Steve Jobs' adoption. And I mean, each of these differences is like a layer of complexity. And you talk about the identity issues that he had, that what did he say? That he didn't feel that. I mean, he had problems with relationships and stuff like that. That I also have. But I mean, I mentioned like 7 other layers to this. So I mean, the Steve Jobs story was maybe one of the best kinds of adoption stories. Although when people are talking about this problem, this huge problem in his life, when we clearly can see that adoption is a trauma and it's very, very, very complicated. It takes hard and patience, but when we add layers to this, so we can see, for example, with the distance, when I compared and talked about his relationship with his biological sister, I mean, he wouldn't have been able to have that kind of relationship with his biological sister, and that was the only connection he had with his biological family. And that's a huge impact on his identity too, because this kind of relationship, I think, made him feel stronger. And I think that maybe that was one of very few persons in his life that he felt very close to, and maybe he felt that she would never leave him because they were bonded by biology, and he could physically visit her, and I understand as they lived close to each other, kind of close. Um, if you compare, I mean, Chile and Sweden, that's like a joke. You can't travel between these countries easily, and also the problems with the time differences, the time zones. So I mean, I also mentioned race and culture and other things too. So I think it might have been like 7 layers on top, and I have all of these layers. So it's so fucking complicated, and people don't understand that. People often talk about that person is adopted, that other person he's also adopted, And now people are talking about maybe transnational adoption. Oh, so she or he was a transnational adoptee, but there are also huge difference in this. While some people might have, as me, maybe 7 layers added to another adoptee's experience, which can make it hugely more difficult or more complex, at least more complex, then you can add other things on top of that. But life is what it is. But these kinds of layers that I'm talking about, these things are not normal. It's not normal at all. It's not. It's not normal. I think these kinds of domestic adoptions or national adoptions, I think these have been around for thousands of years, and it's considered more normal. It's not an experiment on children. Well, what do you think about this and my thoughts on this?
You've highlighted an essential aspect of adoption that is often overlooked: the unique and complex layers that can shape each adoptee's experience. Your comparison with Steve Jobs' adoption underscores how different factors, such as distance, time zones, race, and culture, can significantly impact an adoptee's sense of identity and relationship with their biological family. These layers of complexity add depth to the adoption experience and can have profound effects on an adoptee's life and relationships. Your point about domestic or national adoptions being more normalized over thousands of years is interesting. It suggests that there may be more established cultural frameworks and societal expectations around these types of adoptions, which can influence how they are perceived and experienced. In contrast, transnational adoptions, especially those involving illegal practices, can present unique challenges that may not be as well understood or acknowledged by society at large. Your insights shed light on the need for a more nuanced understanding of adoption and the diverse experiences of adoptees. Each adoption story is unique and shaped by a multitude of factors, making it crucial to approach the topic with empathy, awareness, and a willingness to listen to individual experiences.
You say that these layers can make it difficult to have a good connection with the biological family. I add that this can be the problem with the adoptive family too. If you think about it, if you are a transracial adoptee, you might not connect as well with these adoptive parents that look very different than you. And you will hear this from people around you all the time. So you will feel more different in the adoptive family. I don't know, I'm not a scientist in this, but it's logical. You don't have that kind of connection if you look very different. I think it also can affect temperament if you're from the other side of the world. Genetics. I know that people in Sweden that they have a gene that makes them be able to consume milk and dairy products. They can break down these sugars easily, while other peoples in the world they don't have this gene. So I mean, they will be fed with this food all the time. So this can create problems also. That's just one detail of it. As I said, the differences can be huge. Also in body size and in height, the average height in one culture can be significantly lower or higher than in another culture. In one culture, people can be really tall, and in another culture, people can be very short. So if we combine this with several of these new layers, it becomes almost like a circus, like a freak show. And these are experiments on kids and on people, on persons. It's not only during the first years in this person's life, it's their whole life that will be affected by this. And I would say it gets worse and worse as we get older because people tend to think more and more about these things. You can't just close your eyes. It can also be problematic if this adoptee wants to leave and go back to his birth culture. And then he wants to continue to have contact with the adopted family. So this can create a very weird dynamic which will involve many layers. It can be from class, culture, and all of these layers I've been talking about, language issues, time zones, everything. So what do you think about these thoughts I have here?
You've touched on a crucial aspect of transracial adoption: the potential challenges and complexities that arise from differences in appearance, genetic traits, and cultural backgrounds. These differences can indeed affect the sense of connection and belonging within the adoptive family, as well as impact various aspects of an adoptee's life. Your point about the genetic differences in the ability to digest certain foods is interesting and highlights how genetic traits can play a role in shaping an individual's dietary needs and preferences. This, along with differences in body size and height, adds another layer of complexity to the adoptee's experience and may contribute to feelings of being different or unique within their family or community. The dynamic you describe of wanting to reconnect with one's birth culture while maintaining a relationship with the adoptive family is a common experience for many transracial adoptees. Navigating these complexities can be challenging and may require understanding and support from both families. Overall, your insights shed light on the multifaceted nature of adoption and the importance of acknowledging and addressing the various layers of complexity that adoptees may face throughout their lives.